Richard Lang. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Nick. A pleasure to be here.
So good to see you again and to be the space that's available in this headless place
The
to see
one
you.
space in which everything is happening.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's a great place to be. And you're definitely I feel very honored to be one of my favorite people to share this place with. So,
Well,
um,
we've jumped right in at the deep end, which of course is the only end there is, which is the space we're looking out of. But great to see you, Nick, and a pleasure to hang out with you and share our reflections about who we really are.
yeah, I mean, this is our second podcast, so we can jump right into the deep end as far as I'm concerned. We got the pleasantries out of the way. Um, One thing I've been like I often do. I've been binge listening to interviews that you've been doing in preparation for this. What I was really struck by, which I always am, but just because it's been such a big part of my world these last week or so, is your guided meditations are absolutely top notch.
Ah,
And yeah, I mean, the one that you did with Sam, of course, was spectacular. It just does, it brings the attention and consciousness right into here and now, this headless place, this void, this 0 point in such a profound way. So I was thinking, not to put you on the spot, but instead of the pleasantries and talking about the background, what if we started with some sort of guided meditation? We're on video now, so we can do the hands disappearing and all the good stuff. And I think the listeners and now the viewers will be able to sort of join us in that very present headless place, and we'll start the jam session from there.
that's fine with me. Funnily enough, I've spent the last 2 weeks recording some more guided meditations for our new version of our app that's coming out in the next month or two, I suppose. And I thought, well, why not have that feature? And so I've been getting up very early in the morning and sitting down in front of the microphone with mostly I just have one idea and then I see what happens. And one of the things that I have enjoyed about it in doing these guided meditations is that, well, it's in the context of the app. So people presumably have done the experiments, and I'm hoping that the listener and viewer will have done some of the experiments. But what the experiments point out is that you're already home. So in other words, one of the main experiments is just notice you can't see your head. Well, I mean, you're not changing anything. You're not going anywhere. You're simply noticing what it's like to be you, that you're looking out of a single eye, like you were saying, Nick, your hands disappear into open space, that when you're with someone, it's face to no face, and so on. And so the place that I'm coming from now, when I do a guided meditation, is to, as it were, sit with the listener or sit with the viewer and look out with them from the space rather than, as it were, assume they haven't got it or talk to them as if they haven't got what rubbish. I mean, can you see your head? No. What do you see instead? The world. There you go. You see. So I would say with the listener or the viewer, be aware now that you're looking out of a single open space, and you're not in the room. I'm not in the room. The room is in me. The world is in me, and I expect if you're looking at me, you're space for Richard now. And this is really respectful, I think. This is saying to the other person, look, I haven't got anything that you haven't got essentially. Now, I've been obviously thinking about this for more than 50 years and working it out and reflecting on its meaning and applying it. But that is, everyone's response to this is different. And that's, vive la différence. My response is different from Nick's. But the place that we're responding to, this emptiness, you see, is the same in us all. And so my role here and my job now in life is simply to share with anyone who's open to it my and your and our reflections on this fantastic condition that we're in. You see, we overlook who we really are. We get hypnotized by society and, spellbound by the mirror, the image there. And we take that face and we imagine it here as if we're behind it. You have to do that. I'm aware now I have a face. I'm acting as if I'm talking from Richard, but I'm distinguishing between what I am for you guys and what I see in the mirror and what I am for me. And they're opposites, you see. Now, I'm convinced you're in the same wonderful condition, that you're built open. So how's that for a starter, sir?
That's fantastic. It's so good, man. I'm locked in.
Yes, yes. It's the way he looks at me. He's hypnotizing me.
That's one way to put it. I was thinking, you're talking about how you're not approaching these recordings you're doing for the app as you're some sort of teacher that's going to give or bestow this upon. But it sounds to me more like you're inviting, as you said, this 0 point, this built open for the world to appear, is home. And you're just sort of inviting others home. And your home is my home, is our home. And I just think that's such a beautiful approach, instead of, the master in the robe on the stage elevated. Hey, I'm going to give you guys something that you don't have. You're saying, no, I'm inviting you out to play. I'm inviting you home, to the home that has always been here. Just giving you a little invitation, a little reminder to see it for yourself.
That's right. And, if you're looking at a lovely view, it's one thing to look at it on your own, but it's another to have a friend with you looking at the same view, and for you to share your reflections on it, because they will see things that you don't see, and vice versa. And so that communication and that sharing is to everyone's benefit. And that's what it's like with sharing who we really are. I think the one became many, so to speak, so it could reflect in different ways upon this miracle of who we are, who it is, who you are. Yeah. I mean, one of the, for example, one of the things that I've been increasingly enjoying, I mean, for some time now, but is the fact that on the one hand, being aware of your true nature, this open space, is a kind of neutral experience. And it's not a high, it's not a wow necessarily, or usually. It's just very down to earth and ordinary. Now, there's a great advantage in this, because then it makes it available. It means it's available even in your lowest moments. You're still space for that. And if it was a high, you'd lose it. You'd wonder, how do I get that back? You'd spend ages trying to find it and you'd never do it. But it's not that. It's a valley experience, not a peak experience. Having said that, when you become aware of this space, when I become aware of this space, I notice it's not just neutral. It's not just empty. It is empty for filling. It is open to the world. Now, if you have someone's house and the door is always closed and they don't want visitors, and they don't invite, well, that's not very welcoming, is it? I mean, they're free to do that, but it's not welcoming in that way, or a closed person or something like that. But if you have someone whose door is always open, as they say, well, you feel welcomed. You feel at home there when you go there. It's a second home. You feel invited in. It's a positive thing. Now, I say your true nature, although it's neutral, thank God, it is also profoundly welcoming. It says, yes, to this conversation. It says yes to this view. It says yes to this world. And that isn't you putting on a special attitude, or developing compassion or empathy or openness. It's just saying you, just as you can see you're neutral, whatever your state, you can see you're welcoming, whatever your state. And this is a profoundly positive thing. And I recommend it.
I second it. Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful metaphor of being open, of having a lockdown home. It's still home, but the doors are locked, and home, when you're stuck inside of this very small thing, if you're identified as just the personality, just the whatever, I think it's the third or fourth level in Douglas Harding's example of where everything from 0 point to an atom to the body and all the way out into the universe. When you're locked into the one point of I'm just Nick or I'm just Richard, and the doors are closed, that's one way that you can be available to the world, but you're shutting out so much. Why would you do that to yourself? There's so much else that's available out there. And it's beautiful to allow it, open the doors, allow it in. I was thinking of, very early on, before I had found the Headless Way or other spiritual practices, I started getting into Buddhism, and they would always talk about cultivating compassion and cultivating empathy. And I remember just being like, God, I'm trying, but I was trying as a closed door. I was at the home, all the doors were locked, and I'm like sort of faking it and pretending like I was empathetic and cared and had compassion for other people. But I was like, I feel like a phony. And what was so cool when I discovered the Headless Way, when I discovered certain more non-dual, I go, oh, the reason you're compassionate for other people is because from here, from 0 point, they are you in a sense, and so why would you want to hurt yourself? Why would you not want anything but the best for yourself, for your greatest self in that case? And I really, if there's again, as an invitation, if anyone's feeling like, man, I don't know how to connect with other people or how to feel empathetic, well, instead of going out this way, go in, go back to the subject, go back to the 0 point and go, oh, that's why, because from that state they are me, and why would I want to hurt myself?
Well, exactly. And really, I think, as you're indicating there, this is not a program. This is test it out, find out for yourself. I completely agree with you, Nick, but test it out for yourself, and it is an extraordinary proposition. I mean, be aware of the place you're looking out of now. Well, I say it's just empty. I mean, empty is a word, is empty and full. Now, is there any dividing line between that emptiness that you are, that clarity, that stillness, and whatever you're aware of? Well, I don't find a dividing line. No dividing line at all. And also, if I'm aware of the content of the space, the content of my experience, well, there's what I'm seeing, and there's what I'm hearing, and there's what I'm feeling, sensing, thinking, feeling, all of those things. Now, is there a dividing line between my body sensations, for example? So I become aware of my body sensations, which are sort of invisible, aren't they? I mean, I can look down and see my body, but right now I definitely got sensations, but on present evidence, I'm not sure what shape they are. But my question is, on present evidence, is there a dividing line between those sensations and the tree I'm looking at, and the houses and the sky? Well, I don't find a dividing line. Now, I can distinguish between these things, just as I can distinguish between one tree and the next. I can distinguish between the tree and the sensations and the sounds and the thoughts, but they're all going on together in this one space. It's not as if the thoughts are going on in a box here, separate by 20 meters from the tree. the tree and the thoughts are arising in this one space. See, and so are the sensations. Now, this is really healing. I mean, this is just, to me, this is a fantastic discovery. It's so relaxing, really, and it's so healing. You know, this deep sense of separation that we all have, I think, from the world, from each other. Well, how do you heal that, you know? Well, see who you really are. You know, look to see whether you're in a box here with all your sensations and thoughts, you know, separate, or are you empty for it all? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful, man. And you said deeply relaxing, and I feel it. I feel physiologically already so relaxed from your you know, and I've done a lot of the stuff on the website, and I've done your programs on Waking Up, Sam Harris's app, a few times, and I do Sam's meditations actually every day. I've done it every day of this year since January 1st, and yeah, it's been good. It's one of those New Year's resolutions I had made forever, and I'm finally sticking to. And
Well done.
yeah, thank you. And you know, obviously, it's funny about like if you do certain resolutions like a diet or exercise or something, the outside world can see it because you lose weight or you put on muscle or whatever. But there's something. Meditation is so subjective. You might have a few people go, "Oh, you seem a little calmer or a little more patient," but it's 100%. You know, this inside job, this inside thing of like. Sam will often say you can cut down the half time of any sort of emotional reaction, right? It's not that, I think we've talked about this before. It's not that anger will never, you know, show up in your life, but it'll show up and it'll sort of fizzle a little bit quicker because you can kind of go, you can see from your, from that, you can see quickly that I'm the one that's aware of the anger, that I don't have to get as wrapped up in it as I have possibly in the past or whatever. And I just definitely would like to recognize, yes, it can be very relaxing doesn't even do it justice, but I can't think of the word. It can be so centering, so bringing presence and mindfulness into your world to just look for your head. And it's funny because you often talk about you can't not see it, right? I think you and I are both convinced nobody can see their own head, where that from 0 point, right? Subjectively, no one can see it. And then, so it's not that everyone gets it in that sense. It's just what it means to you, whether or not you think it's profound or it's meaningful. And for you and I, it was obvious from the first time, and as time goes along, you know, through life, it becomes more. And it's, as I wrote in that article that I sent you, it seems to be the gift that keeps giving. You keep going, you know. God, can I really get anything more out of this practice? Can it, you know, make my life, can I travel lighter through life? Can I feel connected to the divine and all that more than I already am? And for me, the practice has just continually surprised me that it answers yes. You know, you can become even deeper and even more, you know, direct and yes, the first time.
I lost you there. You
Oh,
froze for about half a
sorry
minute.
about that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure where I cut off, and I'm not sure if the recording got it or not. But we're gonna have to just be stoic about this and ride it out because I'm at the mercy of my internet connection.
Well, I'll just comment a bit on what you said about being convinced that this is true for everyone. I think you were saying that. And you see, the Headless Way sets the bar so low that you can't get under it, you know. So you can't see your head, instead you see the world. And so that's why I say everyone gets it. Now, as you said, not everyone values it. And that's their business. That's their business. And really, deep down, that doesn't make any difference to me. I'm going to sing my song and I'm going to celebrate this. And I hope that that is infectious. But I respect people for whatever they think or feel about this, and who is it anyway who's responding to this? So, if I share this with someone, and if someone asks me about the Headless Way, I years ago I'd probably start with an introduction and explain why what you are depends on the range of the observer, and there are these stages of development. Well, you've lost the person. They're going to argue with what you've said anyway. So these days I generally just go right in at the deep end, like we did at the beginning of this conversation. I go, well, it's about noticing you can't see your head. Can you see your head there? You see, when you look at me, isn't it face to no face? I've got your face, you see. I'm built open for you. Everything is arising for me within this open space, you see. And then you pause and see what the reaction is. And if they're up for more, you take the next step. But if they're not, talk about football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I love you said the bar's so low that you can't get under it. It's the most. I think I've said before. It's the most accessible spiritual practice I could possibly imagine, because you show it to somebody in a few seconds. And I've done it to friends often. Again, when you were talking about the home with the doors being closed, so I feel both subjectively from my 0 point when I look for my head. I feel a lightening and an opening and an expansion.
Lost you again. Can't hear you. You're moving, but I can't hear you now.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, this is our final attempt. We're one of my last internet connection options, so hopefully this works. We'll see if the internet gods love us for this one. Okay, we were in a great flow as
I've completely forgotten what we were talking about.
I did too. It's okay. I'll be a good host and pick us right back up. One thing that's been interesting from the beginning, I didn't know that you were recording a new app, which is good. This is good timing. Maybe this will get out there and send some people to go find it. So what's the name of the app, and what's the project?
The Headless Way is the name of the app. It's already on iPhone and Android, but there's a friend who is redoing it, and so we're developing it and changing the look and adding a few things. So it's rather fun, and it just is part of our toolkit of ways in which we are attempting to get this about. Yeah, the Headless Way. Check it out.
Right on. And you're doing video, which would be that hasn't been on the app to this point, correct? It's all been audio.
No, there's already video on it.
Okay.
But these will be. I'm adding a few guided meditations. Those will be just audio.
Okay.
But the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is sort of connected to that, which on the back of what you were saying before, is when I'm interested in sharing this, of course, and I'm interested in sharing this as equals, because for obvious reasons that what we're sharing is immediately available and obvious, and so there isn't a hierarchy here. And it is most interesting to share reflections and all of that. And so what I see happening, and it's happening here with you, and it's happening in lots of Zoom meetings we have every week, and in other face-to-face or face-to-no-face meetings, is the emergence of a society, very small society, sort of mini community within the larger community, where the members of that community, so to speak, very loose network, are all aware of their true nature. and accept that it is totally obvious and that everyone's response to this is valid and will be different. So there isn't a right way of thinking about it or behaving or any of that stuff. So this is very exciting, and I think this is a hugely positive development in society, and the internet is a great part of that because it means that it's easy for people to meet up who are in different countries, for example, because headless seers are still thin on the ground in that in the sense of numbers there. So anyway, I am just putting out this wonderful development that's been going on for years, but seems to be growing, speeding up because of the internet and because these things are cumulative. The more people tell their friends and share it, then there's more people there who will tell their friends and share it, and so it grows. So this conversation is an example of the community enjoying sharing our common ground. Now, you have to say that that is hugely relevant today, as it's always been, in the sense that we don't normally share this, and therefore we are in our own bunkers, whether it's individuals, families, nations, power blocks. We are at each other's throats when we are, only seeing ourselves as separate. Now, it's absolutely vital to understand your separate nature, but that is within the context. For example, Nick and Richard now, I understand the boundaries, the differences between us and all of that. But at the same time, I'm aware there's one consciousness here, and it doesn't have my name on it, and we're both in it, as it were. Now that you've got to say that if that catches on even more, it's going to make a difference. It must make a difference, and it is actually like having a skill that, for example, a friend of mine, he after the pandemic, if we have come out of it anyway, he went to a wedding. And this was his first time in a social gathering like that. And his normal reaction would be to feel nervous, not know what to say, not look forward to it. He feels self-conscious, oh, small talk, what's the point? All of that. You probably familiar with that kind of response. Well, this time he went along and he just practiced being headless. And, he made small talk and he didn't tell anyone about headlessness, but he enjoyed being space for it and hanging out and having people's faces. You look at someone, you're talking to them, and while you're talking about whatever it is, some small talk, you're enjoying having their face instead of your own. That is the underlying thing that's going on for you, is you're being the other. So what you're doing in a way. You're space for the situation. Now, he found himself relaxed. You could understand that he also found others enjoying being with him. Because he was broadcasting openness. He was broadcasting welcoming. He was living with his home open.
Yeah.
Open house. Well, that you can say, you could even put it in terms, well, that is acquiring a special skill set. Yes. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that? Of course, there's a lot more than a skill set, but there's no reason to not acknowledge how it is beneficial. Yeah, in all kinds of situations.
I love that you call it a skill set, and I think that there's so much that I would absolutely agree. It's one of my more helpful skills for navigating life and the stresses of job and family and relationships. And a few examples came to mind. I'll say the most immediate one. as you were sharing that, I was thinking of, I'm a little stressed or a little thrown off that the internet connection isn't that great. And if I can sort of look for my head and use this skill right here and now, I can go, oh, I know I'm space for this to sort of happen, for me and Richard to connect, for us to share this with the world. And from that place, it's sort of like all the stress does sort of melt away. And you, not in a way of like cutting the stress out and throwing it away, but like you open up so much that it just sort of dissolves. It makes me think of I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh said, one drop of poison in a cup, can kill you, but a drop of poison in the ocean will just sort of dissolve, and you can drink the ocean at that point, because instead of trying to cut out the poison from the cup, you can just realize, oh, I don't have to just identify as the cup in this moment. I can identify as the ocean. I can become a little bit more vast or boundless, and then allow something stressful like a bad internet connection, or I have a million other examples in my life of something like that. It sort of dissolves in the vastness of, as you said, when you pay attention to present evidence, you can't find a dividing line. You can't find where the stressful stimulus is and where the rest of the world is, right? They're sort of all appearing within the same, spaceless space, the same boundless, container, containerless container. I had an experience, so I thought of that. I also thought of just yesterday, I had a situation somewhat similar to going to a wedding, a socially stressful situation where I had just gotten off work, and I was in my work clothes, which is, dirty, and yeah, I work in a construction type job, so dirty and didn't look all that great. And I had to go to sort of a popular mall area, Santana Row, which is in San Jose, for anyone that knows. Just beautiful place with all these fancy shops and restaurants, and everyone's out there dressed very nice, and nice cars all over the place. And I'm sitting there in my, stained, dirty work clothes and work boots. I was walking around. I had to wait for half an hour while some work was being done. And I'm walking around, and I was finding myself becoming self-conscious of, man, these people must be looking at me like, who is this guy? Like, he's all dirty, and, it's a beautiful day on the weekend, and everyone's dressed up all nice, and this and that. And I actually, in preparation for today, I had my headphones in, and I was listening to your interview at Buddha at the Gas Pump with Rich Archard. And I just go, wait, what if I just look for my head? And as I started looking for my head, all of a sudden I expanded out from Nick's, little story, little identified as the guy in dirty clothes, to, oh my God, what a beautiful, the architecture here is amazing. The trees, the sun shining, and this and that. And I was on a good trip, there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long I was waiting, of like, again, the skill of I'm going to be there waiting for the work to be done for 30 minutes. And I can either be self-conscious and feel uncomfortable through the whole thing. You can feel self-conscious and uncomfortable through the wedding, or you can open up and be available to, how beautiful this world is and what it's presenting. And then, funny enough, I started making eye contact with all these people, not on purpose, but just eye contact, and smiling at them, and then smiling back at me. And it was just such a cool demonstration of, yes, this is a skill set. This isn't, something that's like this selfish little thing of, whoa, look at me, I'm enlightened and I can see the beauty of the world. Like, no, it can help, this little 0 point to move through the world and see the beauty and be available and be of service to other people, if it's only just eye contact and a smile, or, something beyond that.
Yes. Yes. Well, there you go. There's an example of you testing it out. And I think that it is helpful. It's been helpful to me to hear from others how it benefits them. You saying that happened to you. I mean, that encourages me in such a situation to apply that skill, if you like, it sort of validates it. I mean, you don't need validation of your true nature in the sense that it's immediately obvious to yourself, so no one else is in a position to confirm or deny it. But it's very helpful to get confirmation. And another one is if you don't know what to say or do, well, do you scrabble around or what? Well, you might do. That might be what you do. But you might also be aware that you can, as it were, just rest in the not knowing, the emptiness, and see what comes out, because something always does. So, if you've never heard that to just relax with not knowing, not forever, just, for the time being, and that is a creative thing to do. That you're not just doing nothing. You're kind of, waiting for the call. You're open to inspiration from your true nature, So I think, I think sharing experiences like that, are very, can be helpful, and that's really what happens when we share our responses and what we discover, about living from this this reality here.
Yeah, I love that. The instead of scrambling, instead of trying to juggle and keep the plate spinning and all that, what if you just stopped for a moment and you rested, were comfortable with not knowing what the next step is, and then there's something about opening up, emptying your cup and being surprised by what comes about. And every time, reliably, something very creative and cool can come about when you truly do sort of stop and let go. It's one of those funny things. You can't fake it. You can't go like, okay, I'm giving up control, and then like have one eye peeking. Did it happen? Did it fix it? Like, you really do have to just sort of practice that skill of dropping it, of letting it go, and then being available to what comes next. That's almost sort of one definition of creativity, really, in a way. I've heard you share about that. I know you were talking about with Rick Archard about writing your book and hitting this point of like, writer's block, or I don't know what to say yet, or I have too much to say and it's overwhelming. And your answer not being to continue to, type away and work away, but stop and go take a bath or go take a walk. And like, actually by dropping it, all of a sudden the answer becomes so clear and so effortless and available. And, that's a really cool process and a useful skill as well, I would say.
Yes. I think the basic equation is something to nothing, is face to no face, is form and color and shape to no form here, no color, no shape. And being aware of your true nature is being aware of how the space you're looking out of is not a thing, and everything else is a thing. Of course, there's no dividing line. You can distinguish, but you can't separate. So what this means in terms of creativity or dealing with situations is that you recognize that there is a process, a cycle, and being aware of your true nature doesn't cut out, in my experience, the cycle. For example, if I'm trying to think of something, I might go through a stage of struggling. Hopefully, like you were saying, being aware of your true nature cuts down the time of that, but not always. I don't think I would claim that. But it means that you're not then trying to achieve a kind of state there, free of this cycle. I should be relaxed. I should be surrendered. I shouldn't be struggling. All of that is there. Life is made of these opposites. And so I think I find I can be a little bit more, probably, I hope, a little bit more compassionate towards myself and therefore towards others. When I'm going through the ups and downs of life, what did I expect? But at the same time, you have access to this place that isn't going up and down and is deeply free and deeply all right. And it's not an achievement. It's true of everyone. You're just returning home in a way, or seeing you're already at home. So it's a paradox, you go through all the, I go through all these. Life, that's what life is. To imagine that you can cut out the struggle. I mean, hopefully it reduces unnecessary struggle and all of that. But, here in England, summer is beginning to turn into autumn, Well, here we go again, round and round and round, or rather some kind of spiral. So,
yeah. I think it's what we're sort of dancing around is the Headless Way isn't a magic pill for the self. I think I mentioned before one of my great teachers that's close to me, a friend really. I call him a teacher. He'd say call him a friend. Is Paul Hederman, and he's a inviter as well. He has a message which is very similar to the Headless Way, but it's based in non-duality, and he uses the term action figure, which I like a lot for the body, sort of that it's not just the body, but it's sort of all the programming that goes along with being a biological being. And he'll often talk about, he'll say what we are. So what we are would be, maybe we could map that onto the headless state, the 0 point. So he'll say for what we are, there are no skillful means needed because we just are that. We've always been that. We can't not be that, and that's sort of, it's just a given. There's, you can't touch it. It's you can't put a hole in the sky, right? But all the clouds that appear in the sky and the thunderstorms and the fireworks and all that appear, that's sort of on the action figure level. That's not at the body level. And to want a magic pill to where no clouds will ever appear in the sky, right? To where the seasons will never change. To I want stability and I want it forever. God damn it. Like, that's a recipe for suffering, obviously. So it seems the Headless Way, like all good spiritual practices that are worth their salt, is a lot more about allowing than, imagining that you can control or force anything, which, life will just show you again and again. Good luck, nice try.
Well, yes, you can't obviously describe your true nature adequately. But since the experience is non-verbal and available now, you've got it. You can't doubt you've got it. I mean, you haven't got this realization or that, but you've got the experience. And yes. I've lost my train of thought there. You're completely into the great void.
You're in the experience. You realize.
I've gone back to babyhood. Well, I've now remembered it. I think it was like, I'm sorry, sir, we'll just put you on hold. Can you wait a minute, please? Okay, you can carry on now. All right, so you can't describe this, but because you can experience it, you can talk about it without feeling you have to try and define it. You don't get hung up on getting the right word. So it's much more poetic or loose than kind of legally trying to define it. So we have all kinds of images and labels for this: God, spirit, awareness, choose which works for you. And because you've got the experience, you don't say, no, well, this is the right one. You say, oh, you use that one, do you? Yeah, tell me why you use that. Because I'm going to learn if you, talk about why, the void or God or spirit or conscious, why that works for you. So having said that, you could say, well, the image for your true nature is the beach, the sand. It's the neutral bit. You can walk on it, you can do anything on it, and it's never affected. Right. So you've got that. The bull can't get its horns into it. So there's an image, and that's quite useful. But I mean, that's not the last image or the only image. So another image is what you were saying. It allows. It's accepting. It's open house. It's just receptive. It doesn't refuse anyone. Just receives. And in a sense, you have no control at all. It's just happening. It's just arising in the moment, you see. Well, I say, got that, let's talk about that. That's really interesting. That is about a kind of surrender, a letting go. There's a great freedom in not being in control of anything. It's just arising. You've nothing here to control anything with. It's the free will thing. So all right, we've got that. But don't think that that's the last word on it.
Yeah.
Here's another word on it, which is that you're the source and that everything flows from you. And that everything is your will, that you are willing the present moment. And that's the opposite of not willing anything, right?
Yeah.
But, I say that don't throw out one because the other seems to be true. Just entertain, put it on, try it on for size. And you see, this is something actually that you can see as a developmental thing, that the baby, you haven't developed the sense of self yet. I mean, you don't even know that you're doing that, opening your hand. It's just happening in front of you.
Yeah. What is this thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So then the process of growing up is to learn to see yourself from outside and identify with that, take responsibility for it. So now you say, I am opening my hand and I am closing my hand. Now, are you doing anything differently? Deep down, I don't think so, except is a developmental stage that you're now taking responsibility for it. Yeah. But you distinguish now between I'm doing this, but I'm not waving the branches of the tree, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. But I say that when you then wake up to your true nature, these two aspects of not being in control and being in control of something develops. So I say, it's who I really am. Okay, I get it. I get it. I'm not in control, not only of this hand, I'm not in control of the stars or the trees or other people or my voice. It's just happening. And there's a great freedom because I'm not responsible for anything, all of that. But the other thing is I have now learned what it feels like to take responsibility for this bit, right? You see?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to, because I'm not just this now, I see I am the tree. I'm going to say, well, actually, I am moving those branches in the wind. And everything that's happening, I am doing. I am willing everything. Now try on for size, because there are things that happen. And if you find either works or it's just happening. But I mean, it is a very interesting point of view to say, who I really, really am is willing the present moment. Because this is not a grudging acceptance of what's going on. This is a deep affirmation of it without having to agree with it or know why. Why would you will the war in Ukraine? You see, those are, you can understand those kind of responses, but the response you're willing, it's not like you can choose. So I think that, because you sit in the middle without a name or a label and you're at the center, you can try on all these different ways of describing your true nature and not have to, go for just one. Why limit yourself, I say.
Yeah, wow, that was really fantastic, Richard. I feel like this is turning into a little bit of a Headless Way masterclass because this is the taking responsibility aspect of it. I feel like that is a deeper layer to how this can express in your life in a real meaningful way that actually can not just impact your own experience in life, but those around you, and even at a greater at a global level, at a universal level. As you said, this is being shared, and more people are discovering their true nature, and being able to experiment personally and share it with each other, and connect. And I think it's been a huge part of my life since the last time we spoke, which is a little over 2 years ago, has been learning to take responsibility for the aspects of children, my family, a stressful, sort of somewhat important job, keeping the lights on and all that. And I think I sort of came at this probably backwards from what would have been traditional for the generation before me, or even before that, of, you go to school, you get good grades, you get a good job, you get a family, and then you end up midlife or so, and you go, hey, where's the fun in life? Where's the beauty? Where's the magic? Where's the awe and all that? I sort of found the awe and the beauty and the magic first, and then had to learn how to grow up, had to learn how to take responsibility for things at a action figure level, at a this, I'm not moving the hand, and I am. And from that place, if I'm responsible for this hand, I'm responsible for the what it creates, and that it does good in the world. And I've had all these sort of virtues that I have written down all over the place to remind myself, and I journal every morning to remind myself. One of them is be of service to the highest good. And that's sort of like a North Star or direction to me, of like, when I want to, chicken out or avoid something, or, deny something or not look at it. Well, am I being of service to the highest good? Of course not. And that sort of brings me back to being responsible. So instead of sort of the headless way, sort of the true nature being an excuse for, well, I don't have any control anyway, so I'm just on the ride and enjoying the ride. Like, that's a nice story to tell yourself, but there's actual real consequences for telling that kind of story. And you may suffer, other people may suffer, the planet may suffer. So I love the idea of taking responsibility and using something like this spiritual practice, the Headless Way, or others, as a tool, as a skillful mean to take more and better responsibility. And the flip side of that, be forgiving of yourself and patient with yourself, because you're going to fail 50% of the time if you're lucky, maybe even more. But at least you're trying, and you're picking a worthy direction, and moving in that direction. So I feel like that share you just did is sort of not just the basics of the Headless Way and the realization that comes along with it, but what continued practice over time, the fruits of that, what it can actually have in your life, in your family, in your community, and sort of the world at large. So thank you for sharing that so much, Richard.
Well, this is sort of reporting from the front line, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're both reporting from the front line. And you send a report in, and then everything suddenly changes, and you got to send another one. So it's rather it's very it's ongoing discovery, isn't it? It's ongoing discovery, and we're all on the front line, as it were, and
yeah, this is, as you keep saying, like, look for yourself, experiment for yourself. This isn't, we're not going to go look at the virtues of Douglas Harding. Well, I'm in this tough situation. What would he do? Right? It's not like a fundamentalist religious thing in that case. I love that you say we're on the front line. We're using these techniques to investigate for ourselves our truest nature, and sort of running experiments in our life of, okay, when we do investigate, what's the outcome of the experiment? Oh, that hypothesis really didn't land. Let's try a new one. Let's update our, and in that way, both, you're already home from 0 point. We're home. We've always been home. And from home, we are continually surprised and exploring and experimenting, and trying to learn and improve, on our day to day. And I think that's a really nice balance, and it's nice to say both, in this case. And some listeners, because we got right into the true nature and the moment and all that, might go, well, that's great. How's that going to pay the bills? How's that going to, put food on the table? And I think what you're sharing, and I can agree with, is it can do both, and it can help absolutely with both.
Yes. And communicating and sharing like we're doing now is so helpful. If you you hear these stories about people who achieve something in sport maybe or whatever, and they say, well, how did you manage to get the confidence to do that? And they say, well, it was my friend or my teacher who just said, Richard, you can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. Now, that has a power, not for everyone, but in those situations, and that just really backed me up, and that somehow I took that in and I did it, and so you acknowledge the power of someone saying to you, you can do it. You're good enough. You're more than good enough. You can do it. You see, they believe in you. They believe in you. Now, when you're sharing with someone else, like I'm doing with you, living from our true nature, you are accepting that the other person is living from it. So it's a similar kind of thing in a way. It is kind of saying, you're doing it. You're doing it. You are doing it. I mean, you don't even have to say it, but I mean, you do say it. The fact that you are talking to each other from that point of view is very different from, well, you're not, it's not that at all. You're completely on that person's side in a very deep way, and acknowledging, and it's two-way. It's two-way. I'm benefiting from this now in the sense that it is that, yet another step in normalizing our true nature, together, and that every time that happens, somehow the world changes, because we're not separate. So, you put out propaganda in the world and everyone believes it, even though it's not true. We're all well aware of that, So, I mean, we've been told all the time that we're separate, when that we are limited and all of that. Well, now it's not propaganda. This is the truth, that we're living and speaking from a place that is not limited. Yeah. And our lives are our human lives, but we are living from this unlimited creative place. That is, the more this happens, the more, I don't know, it happens.
It has a reciprocal effect, it feels like, because maybe so many people are sort of closed off, and they come upon someone else and they say, as you said, I believe in you. You got it. You're doing it right. You're working from a good place. And then they go, oh, all of a sudden that opens up the world to, oh, I live in a world where we can actually encourage and share this with other people. And I know how great it made me feel. I can, I can share that with other people as well. And I think that there's a reciprocalness to that, and that it sort of, it's like a positive virus. It spreads, and people see the benefit of it, and it can sort of expand, which speaks to your project so much. I remember the last time we talked, you said you love giving it away for free. There's something so cool about I think I wrote down a Marcus Aurelius quote, because I've been getting into Stoicism since we last talked. He said, the only wealth which you will keep forever is the wealth which you have given away. And that made me think of you and most of my favorite teachers and sharers out there, is that real wealth is wealth you give away freely. And he also says forever, in a sense of, you pass it down to maybe the younger generation, and they're around a little bit longer than you are, and they pass it down to that generation. And like, that's real, true wealth in a way that feels clean and infinite, and even divine in a way. And yeah, I think the sharing of this is just such a spectacular meaning, and to drive your life. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about that. I've been big on meaning, the meaning, living a sort of meaningful life and meaningful day to day. How do you feel about sort of that word and that idea? What gives you meaning? What gets you out of bed in the morning, if you had to put it, and you can put it as directly or poetically as you want, but what's Richard thinking about when he's getting out of bed in the morning and looking at the day ahead?
Coffee.
Hey, me too, actually.
well, I don't know. I can tell you, perhaps what I was thinking this morning, but it depends, doesn't it? It depends what's going on, really.
Yeah.
And it's living a creative life, isn't it? Living from the source is living a creative life where, you still got things to do you have to do, but all of that is appearing out of the fertile void. And so you see what comes up. I've been recording these guided meditations for our new and wonderful and special app with special features that will be released in a Headless way. Yeah.
Sign up now.
Conditions apply.
No, we do not promise you'll get
no condition. So I have to get up really early because I live in a flat and there's often noise about, and so I get up. I've been getting up really early. And sometimes I have an idea and I go and sit. And then what I do is the guided meditation is me chatting and seeing, about this, seeing what comes out. Now, it did happen last week that I got, I did one. I usually just do one, that's enough. And it's my sort of, my morning meditation, bizarrely, is me guiding myself.
I was just thinking that, yeah, it's a self-guided meditation.
Yeah, recording it and editing it. But anyway, I got through it. I thought, that was rubbish, Richard. That was rubbish.
That's funny.
It actually wasn't. I've included it, but when I got to the end of it, I thought, I'll do another. And I think it was about that next one was just about not doing.
So funny. So you said you'll do another, and it was about not doing.
It was about not doing, you see. But of course, this is the equation is face to no face, doing to no doing. It's not then setting up some kind of program where you don't do. It is locating all doing there and non-doing here. So not doing by itself would be terribly boring and wouldn't be very good for your health. But doing, just doing is very tiring. So have both, you see. Have a place where now I'm here, you see, where I am, I'm doing absolutely nothing, you see. It's like being on holiday. At the same time, I'm chatting away. And so that just came out of nowhere. So I did it, and that will be included on the
app. Listen for not doing. Yeah, I got the backstory.
I remember once asking Douglas Harding, I said, so, I mean, how do you come up with the next book, Well, I don't know. It just occurs to me. And then I take the next step and see what happens. Well, that's a bit what it's like, really, most of the time. You know that Bob Dylan song, Most of the Time?
You know what? I think actually learned about it from you, and I looked it up. I don't know if it was if it was recorded or
I
not,
just
but
recycle the same old. I'll have to look up in my notes what I'm supposed to talk about next. I mean, it's got such a great voice, but here's someone you see who throws images at like they're, you know. I read a biography of Mozart recently.
Mm-hmm.
And Mozart, he was a very rude man. I mean, he used to talk about shit and piss and, you know, all the time. I mean, it was just the family culture, you know, it was a joke, really.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, you know, I can make up tunes like a sow, you know, female pig, like a sow can piss, like a sow can piddle. You know, it just comes out like a sow can piddle. You know, excuse the language, but it's Mozart.
Great. Yeah.
And that's not, you know, I can now make up trees like a sow can piddle, right? I can now make up clouds like a sow can piddle. I can now make up a lamp or this
Effortless.
Yeah, but it's just your nature. His nature that was channeled into music. So you know, what is your nature? Well, my nature is this. My nature is this, and you know, you're good at something. You're always good at something. Well, what are you good at then? I'm good at the universe.
I'm good at being space for the universe.
If all else fails, just tell them that you're creating the universe at the moment, and it'll be all right.
I can't do much, but I can be the space for the universe to appear within.
Oh, not just be the space, be the creative source. Yeah,
Be
you know, take responsibility. You know, people all their lives spend their life not taking responsibility, letting it happen. I say, you know, for once, just take responsibility. You know, say you do it, you're doing it. I did that. You know, well, I mean, Bob Dylan, I think it's just so brilliant because he could produce metaphors and images like a sow can piddle, you know, and they just one after the other they throw at you, and they are so rich, you know. And there he is in this song most of the time, throwing images, great images, you know, about how things are most of the time. That's like, you know, you're everything, you know, you're accepting everything just as it is because you're space for it. Most of the time, because sometimes you see.
It's funny actually. Paul, my teacher, one of the things he says is the 51% rule. He goes, you know, if you're at least available 51% of the time, then the scales are sort of tilted. You can't ask for much more than that. And something's very comforting to me about that. Just 51%. You don't got to be 100%. You know, perfect and available.
On the other hand, but you see, I'm a yes but person. The equation, the perfectly balanced equation. You know, you think, what's a balanced equation? Well, 2 + 2 = 4. There you are. That's stable. See, but the most balanced equation is 0 on one side and everything on the other.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking of
You know, so 51%. No, I think Paul's wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. 0%. I'll make sure he sees this.
Yeah, you won't find me here if you send your boys around.
I don't know if you know, he does have a background growing up in Long Island, New York. So yeah,
that's encouraging. Oh god.
But yeah, no, all joking aside, I think that way of seeing it as well, the sort of 0% to infinity, sort of, right?
Well, this is humility as well, you know. Again, you return to not being anything, you know, that there's nothing to maintain, there's nothing to prove, there's nothing to keep going. I mean, there just isn't. There's nothing here. It's not like you're being good or spiritual. There just isn't. And that's your refuge, and that's your safety, and that you can rely on, and that you can live from, you know.
That's so since we're here, I feel like we're maybe dancing around. We could talk again at an action figure, at a personal level. Do you have thoughts on death, mortality, things like that? Sorry to go a little, that's not very polite to ask a British guy. Sorry, people say that I'm morbid, but I always, it's a big, speaking of meaning and, you know, what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Have you seen the cartoon where there's Death with his sickle and there's an old man with a Zimmer frame? Have you seen that one?
I have not, no.
And Death says to the old man, "I am Death." And the old man goes, "Oh, well, I'll speak up then." If you don't get that one, I'm not going to explain it. Yeah, well,
Give it
Death.
time.
Yeah, well, I think that I don't look forward to death. I know it's there. I know it's on its way. I hope it is, not unpleasant.
Yeah.
I hope I live a long life. I am, I want to leave a legacy. All those normal human things apply. I'm glad to say, you see. But at the same time, I'm aware that my true nature never dies. And there'll always be something in this space. Now, what's in it will change when I die, I assume, quite radically. Who knows? But I will be who I really am with something going on, So they say, practice death while you're alive, and then, I don't know, something like that. Well, this is a kind of death, isn't it? And then it's a rebirth. It's you become everything. But I think that it helps me cope with at least the idea of death, because I'm not, I'm not actually on my deathbed right now.
Uh-oh. Famous last words.
But so all I can say is how it helps me cope with the prospect of death. And then, have you got the idea of death right? Because if you've got it wrong, you're afraid of something that isn't true,
Yeah.
So if you think you right at center are going to die, well, I say you've got it wrong. If you say, I mean, the one in the mirror, Richard, and all that's connected with that,
Yeah.
because there's no dividing line between Richard and the tree, there's a distinction, but no, that will change. But I mean, it's changing all the time. It's changing. But I mean, presumably, it's quite possible I won't see my friends again, and might not see trees again. I'd have no idea. But I think that if life is a kind of story, and every day is a page, and what is great about an adventure story, don't we all like adventures, What is great, what is characteristic of an adventure story is that you don't know exactly what's going to happen on the next page.
Yeah.
So you turn the page. It's a page turner because you don't want to know and you want to find out. Now, the thing is that so there's an element of unpredictability about it, but it's not totally unpredictable. If you turn the page and it was a completely different story, you'd go, huh? It has to have a kind of
continuity.
Yeah, continuity. This is life, isn't it? That one day the sun comes up, some goes down, comes up. You can function because there's a pattern, but it is unpredictable enough to be interesting. Now, if it's not very unpredictable, we call it boring. And if it's too unpredictable, it's chaotic and frightening, like war can be or like illness can be. So, I mean, there are extremes here. Now, that is a thriller. That's a page turner. And you turn the page and you go, oh, my God. Like in the film, Game of Thrones, and suddenly they kill all your favorite people. And, you go, what? You can't do that. But, well, I mean, that happens in life, doesn't it? Something is suddenly taken away from you. And you go, and it takes a while to adjust. And you go, really? So you've got this story. Now, there is one page in the book, and you don't quite know where it is. It could be the next page, where the deal is that you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. Now that I call death. You have no idea. It's so, there's two sides to it. It's the extreme of unpredictability, right? Because anyone who claims they know what is going to happen after they die, I don't know where they get their information, you know. I don't anyway.
Can't
So,
run that experiment. Yeah.
so in one way, it is totally unpredictable. Now that's scary, could be, you know, that, but I mean, that's the deal, you know. So, but the other side of it is deeply predictable, because you can be quite assured that you will be, and there'll be something happening. You say, well, how can you be sure of that? Well, I'm testing it out now, and I'm not in time. You know, the world is in me. That ain't going to change. You know, I mean, it's just, you say, well, I mean, how can you be sure? I can be sure because it is self-evident, and it is the nature of my being. And it doesn't run according to the conditions within the story. So there you've got this element of total safety, total predictability, at the same time as, you know, this is the knuckle ride of the century, kind of, you know, that page. So I have written to the editor to say that I'd rather take that page out, please. But they can't do it.
This one story, could you just skip that particular page?
I mean, really?
Yeah, wow, fantastic, man. It's something one of my friends who's an author, Keith Thompson, talks about is he's older, he's in his 60s, and he says he's come to trust in being, or he's come to have the one thing he has faith in is being. Is he doesn't know what's on the other side, but he knows that he'll be being, you know, on that. It will be being on the other side.
It's about going to completely cutting your losses and betting on the lowest, you know, the lowest possible bet.
I'm going all in on existence.
Yeah. I'd like to put $10,000 on this, on being, please. It will be here.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, man. What a great, that's a great gift, I think, for anyone that has death anxiety right there, because
and the thing is that is common knowledge, you know, that if you have a limited number of pages, which you do, and you're acutely conscious of it, well, that puts into sharp relief, you know, well, are you going to do this or that before you get to that page, you know? Now you might not, but I mean, if you've got the idea you've got endless time, you say, oh, well, mañana, I'll do it tomorrow.
I've been reading.
Mañana is not I'll do it tomorrow. Mañana is I won't do it tomorrow.
I'll never do it. Yeah, exactly. I've been reading Seneca's On the Shortness of Life, and
as one does.
Sorry, man. I'm turning 33 next month, man. I'm facing my mortality over here. And I've noticed over time, like, just time and attention, and you know, how you direct your day to day. It's like I feel time in a new way, in a kind of like beautiful way of like, oh my God. One thing I like to say, me and my buddy say to each other, is we got another sunrise. Right, which is, you know, you wake up, and we wake up really early for work, and you watch the sun go up, and there's this feeling of, oh, I got another day. Like it's a present, you know, it's a gift of and I can do whatever I want with these next, you know, 16 hours or whatever. I can.
Like getting through I don't play computer games, but, you know, onto the next level.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the value of time, and where you direct it, and the attention and all that you use towards it. So speaking of mortality and all that, I have this thing when I do the deathbed meditation, right, which, as you do again, right, you think of.
I'm just trying to process that. Oh yeah, he says, like it's the most casual thing to do. What, after you've had a cup of tea?
Yeah, everyone does that, right? I'm not weird.
Darling, I'm just going upstairs to do the deathbed meditation. Okay.
If I don't come back in 20 minutes, check on me. Yeah, so I often sort of have two sides of the coin. I know you love Ramana. I know Douglas Harding, Ramana Maharshi. I have that sort of, well, let me do the self-inquiry and find who it is that's going to die, right? And go inside and become, very clear. Okay, I trust in being. I know Nick, the action figure, the meat suit's going to die, and being is going to go on being. I don't know how it will, but it will in some way. We'll turn the page and we'll see what happens. But from a personal side, from sort of Nick's little story, when I would do the meditation, I'd have this one thing that would just keep calling at me and wouldn't let me go for years. I'm talking like a decade, which is, if you were to pass away untimely. I have two little daughters. They're 8 and 5 right now. They're the world to me. They're my everything. I would have this thing come in of, you don't have much to leave behind for them. And this is part, as far as knowledge, as far as, like whatever material things or whatever, but as far as like a little piece of myself. And I heard Bruce Lee's daughter, of all people, an interview with her a few years back, and she was talking about how her father, Bruce Lee, passed away when she was 5, and so she didn't really remember him personally, but she came across his writings, both published and private, and sort of has lived her life based on his writings, based on what sort of knowledge and wisdom he had left behind, which I think is pretty cool. I'd never quite heard anything like that. And I haven't been able to let go of, I want to write something to leave behind for my daughters. So that's the article that I sent you is based on this project that I've been doing. Again, since it's been a good year for me. I meditated every day this year, and I've also written every day this year since January 1st. And as you were speaking about waking up early in the morning to do your sort of morning meditation, I'm finding myself in a similar state of every day I get up, it is effortless. The computer opens and I start typing and the words start coming out. And it's like, if it doesn't happen, it's crazier than not having a cup of coffee. It's like crazier than not breathing almost, And so,
Yes, but I mean, I'm thinking of your daughters, and we're here talking about our true nature, and we know that this true nature is their true nature, and you are valuing it, and you are celebrating it and sharing it with whoever is willing to listen. Now, that who knows whether your daughters will value it or not. That's not your business, but if they do, they'll say, well, Dad, well done. Yeah, you were on target there. And that, wonderful. Yeah.
what I think of too is I got a 50-50 chance. Maybe one will see the value and one won't, but at least I'm doubling my chances.
We could bet on them. we could,
We could, yeah. We're going all in on being, and I'm gonna go.
How would you know though? How would they have to declare, at 21?
But see, and the idea here is I'm passed away, so I wouldn't even be there to collect. So.
Well, that's going to be tricky then.
Yes, right. But yeah, it's one of those I can't lose. Let's say I end up living a long, healthy life. I'll probably hand it to them maybe when they graduate college or something like that, and see us. But then you see, they're gonna. Why am I gonna read this, Dad? I can just come talk to you. You're gonna give me all this homework to do. But anyway, along those lines, if you have a little more time, I do want to be respectful. I see it's slowly getting dark there. I don't want to keep you up all night. Do you have a little more time to talk?
Yes.
Okay. Along those lines, you're a fantastic writer. I remember when I read the Man Without a Head, or The Man Who Had No Head.
The graphic biography?
Yeah. I was really struck by your voice and your style and all of that. Any thoughts on writing? Any advice? How do you approach that creative process?
The teacher that I follow is called Peter Elbow. Have you heard of him?
I have not. I'm going to write that down, actually.
Peter Elbow, Writing Without Teachers, I think, or Writing with Power. And it's very Headless in a way, his style. He's in his 80s now. And he was really writing these books in the late 60s and 70s, I think. He's an American guy. My brother showed me his books, and it has just been really valuable because his approach is that, contrary to the idea that you've got to know what you're going to write and you've got to have it all ready and then you've got to, just write it out. He says, no, just start and find out what you think. Writing is a process of finding out what you think. And he divides it into the kind of free writing side and then the editing. And what people tend to do is they edit while they're writing. And so they stop all the time and they go back. Whereas get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out, then look at it. Then you might have to write again and look at it, order it, all of that. So that there's that. That's been really helpful, encouraging, because you just see what comes out really is in that. The other thing is that he distinguishes between when a teacher or when you're listening to someone, believing and doubting. And the normal approach is, or the quite common approach is, when someone is saying something, you pick holes in it and you say, well, that's where you've done it wrong. Whereas his general approach is, put yourself in their shoes, hear what they're saying, receive it as their expression. Let them know you've heard it. If you say anything, it's because it's such a delicate thing for most people to start to speak through words in writing, or even just speak, you see. So it's the same when you're speaking. I used to teach Tai Chi and so on. And I learned the obvious thing: if someone's doing a move, you don't say that's wrong. You say, let's do more of this. Because the wrong is you close the door. And they'll always remember that. I have it in myself with teachers, and you're stuck because you can never do it right. But if they open the door, then you're on your way. You're on your way. Yeah. And it's the same with writing, to yourself, but to others too. So that he's been just really helpful. Writing is then a process of finding out what you think rather than putting down what you already know you think.
Yes. Yes. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. That's been my experience 100%. I love it. I'm going to definitely look him up. That looks fantastic. Writing reveals to yourself what you think has been, it's almost, I've said, it's like a spiritual practice. I feel like to write. I think you'll dig this. I've been using this sort of way of mapping it as, we'll say we start at the void and we start at 0 point. And from there, some sort of subtle whateverness manifests, appears, and, just telling a little story in time. And from there, for me personally, it sort of turns into like a feeling or like a vague sense. And from there, it can sort of start to become a thought. And maybe the thought is an image or it's a word. Words maybe a little more dense, and then from there you get a clear thought and something that's almost invokes an emotion. And then there's this leap from the inner mental world to speaking, to trying to communicate it out to the world. And you can communicate, physically through dance or through singing or through speaking. And sort of from there, there's another huge leap of being able to speak about something to being able to write about something. Like that's like a even more concrete sort of dense form of communication from a sort of subjective first person experience. And it's been so cool to do that sort of that leap from, I've been pretty good at talking about what's been helpful to me, what my sort of values are in life, what's important to me. But putting it down on paper, you really surprise yourself. Oh, this is a lot harder than it looks. It's tough to get this down on paper. And then I think the final step, as you were speaking about, was it Peter Abdil?
Peter Elbow, like the
elbow. Peter Elbow. Okay, got that right. Is the writing, just getting it down on the page and then editing, because the editing side is, if I'm going to communicate this to someone else, let me cut out the fluff. Let me cut out the unnecessary and just keep it as coherent, concise, to the point as possible. And so when you go from the void to, you sort of have this vague feeling and follow that line all the way along to an edited piece of presentable, publishable, written word. I feel like that whole process has been so cool for me. It's been almost, again, like a spiritual practice. And so much of what you're sharing, your approach seems to really be in line with that.
Yes, it's a path of discovery. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny, if one thing some of the people I work with is they'll say, I know it, but I just can't tell you. And I go, yeah, I know, man. That's part of the human experience. And I found myself earlier this year going, well, I can say it, but I just can't write it. Oh, well, okay, let's not use that as a cop out. Let's put in the time and the practice to write it. And it sort of works backwards too. You're able to edit something very well, then you can write better. You can write better. You can say it better. You can say it better. You think better. And it's been a really crazy, again, it's something I can't share, but I can only speak about. I have these long drives sometimes for work, an hour and a half, and I can have like intentional thinking time, like really thinking about a problem or some sort of, thing in my life. And I'm not sort of just all over the place where it's like, I'm thinking about some weird past memory, some other thing, but I can sort of stay on board as if I was writing an essay. I can stay on board within my own mind for some time to really think things through. So I feel, all that is to say, I feel like writing is so fruitful in every sort of aspect of your subjective life. So yeah.
Okay.
Right on, Richard. Fantastic, man. So good to see you. So good to share this place with you. You took us all over the place, from the whole universe to the void to the page of death and the next page after that.
You got your money's worth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You placed a good bet if you put your time into
Well,
this.
let me say to anyone listening or viewing, I go around making friends, not students. And if you value this, then I hope to meet you one day, or come and join us in our Zoom meetings. Get in touch through Nick or through our website, and all the free Zoom meetings. But anyway, just extending hand of friendship in that way, and glad to have the opportunity. Thank you, Nick, very much for providing this opportunity to share and celebrate our true nature.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard, for all of the great work you're doing.
To go on and on about nothing.
Yeah. Who would have thought you could talk an hour and a half about nothing and have so much fun doing it too? So yeah, please look into the headlessway.org. Come join the Zoom meetings and join in the fun.
The Headless Way app.
The Headless Way app, of course. How can we forget? And
no conditions apply.
Right on. Okay. Thank you so much, Richard, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Pleasure.